Top of the day to you, Peter Crone checking in as promised, making 3 videos here. I said the other day I would speak to 4 main areas of what it means to be human and how we relate to life. Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, just as my attempt to contribute some relief, insight, and also just as a response to how many of you very kindly wrote in and sent messages asking if I could say a few words. So here I am, saying a few words, making noise. I'm not here, of course, to proclaim to have any answers whatsoever. And I kind of want to speak to that because honestly, nobody does. And that itself, I think, is an opportunity to reveal what we can all learn from this, which is that part of our humanity by design, very primal, it's universal, is that just like any organism, we are designed, we are motivated by survival. So anything that comes into our lives as an external stimulus that is a potential threat to our existence is going to trigger what we're seeing, which is mass hysteria, despair, ton of fear, huge amount of anxiety, but predominantly all within the auspices of uncertainty. So I can only speak from my own experience with anything that I share with you guys, but I feel like why I got to a place of such freedom, and it's not even I feel like, I know that I got to a place of such freedom because I recognize that the very nature of life itself is uncertainty. That's its structure. It would be like me saying water is wet. You'd be like, well, duh. But to what degree do we have that same logical understanding of the fact that life itself is uncertainty? That is its nature. And on top of uncertainty, as human beings, by design, we have a brain that is constantly trying to predict and protect because its function is to help us survive, one of them, right? We could say that's its primordial function. So if you look at the disparity between a construct we live in, which by design is uncertain, and yet an organism with a central nervous system that's always trying to figure out certainty, you can start to see the conflict. So what is the opportunity, as far as I'm concerned, and at least here why I want to share this so that maybe you find some relief, is that I don't care who you are, what you're worth, how smart you are, what your resources are. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And I might come across as somewhat like lighthearted about that, but when you really get it, it is incredibly liberating because it doesn't matter how hard you try to figure it out, all you end up doing invariably is getting exhausted, which is how most people live their lives, right? Is constantly worrying about a bad future that hasn't happened yet, and then simultaneously trying to figure out all the steps to avoid that, which as you can start to see is also futile. So even though this is en masse a pandemic and unprecedented time that is very scary, and these feelings are totally legitimate and justified from the human level, for which reason there's no judgment, only compassion, but nonetheless they are all the byproduct of the part of us that is very mechanistically designed to try and survive. The grappling, the holding, the attachment to our own existence, which again is not wrong, but it's exhausting. What if, outside of the virus, you were told one day that you had 3 days to live, which many people do, right? By the millions every day prior to this virus, people were going to see their oncologist or were being told by whichever doctor care provider that, go and take care of your belongings and say goodbye to your family. Like, this is something that's happening all the time. It just isn't on CNN all the time. So this is to me a wonderful opportunity, and maybe that's seems like a tough choice of words for many of you, but to look at the deep-seated primal fears that we all have about our own mortality. Again, from personal experience, my mom died when I was 7. It was, through cancer. So there was a period that we knew she was not well. But my dad died also when I was 17, and we were living a very nice life, single parent, with me, and then I'm saying my goodbyes, and there's just this assumption that we all live within that, I'll see dad tomorrow when he comes back from work. Never did. He was part of a shipping disaster where 300 plus people died. That was not predictable. That was not something that I could calculate, but it is an inherent part of life, which is we just, again, don't know what's going to happen. So my invitation to everybody at this time, myself included, is to recognize that the deep-seated fear and unrest that is coming to the surface is not because of the virus. The virus does not create despair. It reveals the despair that is already inherent in our system. So for that reason, just like a surgeon is going to pull out whatever toxicity or tumor in somebody's body is a healing process, even though he has to cut skin and it's a scary process. Likewise, the virus to me is bringing to the surface all of those things that are unreconciled in the human psyche as it relates to our fear of our own existence. And why is that profound? Because I think we take so much for granted. Like, there is, the quote by Thoreau, I think, is very poignant at this time, where he said he went to the woods, I'm paraphrasing, but he didn't want to get to the end of his life and die and realize he hadn't been alive. And I just wonder how many of us, and I certainly was guilty of this for a big portion of my life. Fortunately, that's been transformed over the last sort of decade. How many of us truly, truly are living versus how many of us are just surviving? And it may sound trite, and it's the last thing I want to come across here on this video as trite but we really don't know how long we've got. And this could be a really wonderful wake-up call for us to suddenly take everything that we have, ourselves included, and really have a sense of deep, deep, profound gratitude for the privilege that it is to be human. Stuff that we take for granted every day, that for a long period, by the sounds of it, we are going to be missing right now, whether it be people that we can't see, products that we can't enjoy, places we can't visit, toilet paper that we can't use, whatever it is. Just to maybe, when we come out of the other side of this, we could give birth to a species that suddenly does really appreciate the gift that it is to be alive. And I can't think of a greater byproduct of something that is truly scary for so many of us, to come out of this on the other side and really feel the reverence that it is to be a human. I hope that helps. We're all in this together, as they say, including the guy who's tearing up my soil right now, so excuse the background noise. I really, really invite you to be comfortable in uncertainty, to discover the fact that you just don't know, I don't know what's going to happen, and to be still with that. So mentally and emotionally was what I wanted to speak to today. Mentally, as best as you can, be still. Just like any parent would hold a child who is scared, they would provide the space, the blanket of comfort and love and acceptance and reassurance for that child. Can we, without sounding like, I'm doing inner child work here, can we hold the space for the part of us that is intrinsic, innate, as being human, that is scared of not knowing what's going to happen? That's the invitation. And then emotionally, what is that energy representing? Love. It is, can I be the space of love for myself, for the people who are truly going through horrific times right now? Can we pull from the resources of our inherent nature of loving to both embrace the humanity that is scared, but equally to maybe find a newfound sense of appreciation for the lives that we do have, however long we're here, and however much toilet paper you still have left. Sending much love. I hope that helps. I'll check in again tomorrow. For now, I'm going to go and get on with a million projects that have been sitting there waiting for me until I had enough time. Because guess what? Now we got plenty of time.